This right here is a brand new classic 35mm f1.4 for the Leica M system, brought to you by Artizlab and Funleader. This is inspired by a 1960s lens from Leica. The 35mm f1.4 version 2 is pretty much identical to this, dare I say it, but this is a modern version for a fraction of the price. Courtesy of Artizlab and Funleader, I've had the privilege of testing this out on my Leica M11 for the last couple of weeks, and in this video I thought I'd share with you my thoughts. Basically, it's really good, like really good. Yeah, review over. Seriously though, this lens has been really fun, but there are still a couple of things that I'm not super keen on. So in this video, I will just break down the pros and cons of the lens, but also maybe answer some questions that you might have before you go ahead and buy this. The first thing I want to mention is that the size of this thing is a huge win for me. And for the same reason that I love the 28mm Elmeret, the compact size really makes it a much more enjoyable experience. For example, I have this Thypoc 28mm 1.4, and I really like how the images look, and it's a decent price as well, but it's just slightly too big. Even my 35mm Summilux isn't exactly compact. It's a beautiful piece of kit and something that I'll probably keep forever because of how truly brilliant it is, but if I was being super critical about it, it would be ideal if it was a little smaller, just like this Artizlab lens is. The next thing I love is that the build quality of this thing is, well, Leica level, for sure. From focusing to the aperture clicks, using this thing is a dream. One of the huge attractions for me using a Leica system really is for that Leica experience, and this makes me sound like such a fanboy, but when I went from using the X100V nearly every day to the Q2 and then over to the M11, the transition to Leica was because of the Leica experience, because the products feel so good to use, and this feels like one of Leica's products. If someone handed this to me blind, I would assume this for sure was a Leica lens. So in terms of build quality, exceptional. Okay, so what do the images actually look like? I'm sure you might want to know that. It's not the sharpest thing ever, especially if compared to my Summilux 35mm, but I think that is the entire point. It's a move away from clinical perfection and a step in the direction of showing a little character and a little texture and a little charm. That's the point of this classic appeal. Take a look at these portraits I quickly snapped of my friends at f1.4. The bokeh and focus fall off is silky smooth, and it's kind of painterly like in a way, if I had to find the words to describe it. I haven't used the original Leica Classic 35mm that this lens is replicating, but I can immediately tell this has a unique look. However, before I share some of the things I'm not a huge fan of with this lens, the unique look that the lens produces does go a step too far in the glow that you might see. Check out this example in some pretty harsh lighting conditions. I noticed these heart balloons this person was carrying and the golden light hitting the scene. I decided to see what it would look like if I shot at 1.4, and if I'm honest, the glow is extremely noticeable and perhaps too much in this example. However, this only happened once or twice since using this lens for the last couple of weeks. On occasion at 1.4, the glow would be too much, but most of the time it wasn't. So I think it's very situational depending on the colors and the lighting and the scene in general, because after I shot that photo at 1.4, I continued to shoot other things at 1.4 and it wasn't as dramatic. So perhaps in that example with the balloons in London, that was a pretty unique look. However, if you love that, then you might want to embrace it when it does happen. So yeah, keep that in mind. The glow isn't a byproduct of every single photograph you take, especially not every photograph at 1.4, but it does show up on occasion, and yeah, it has a certain look. Let's now talk about some things that I'm maybe indifferent to or actually would prefer to be a little bit different about this lens. And the first one is the infinity lock on the focus. It's just ever so slightly annoying, as sometimes you might push the focus over to infinity, but not all the way to infinity, you just want to get close. It will sometimes accidentally slip into place, and you then spend half a second kind of like fiddling with it and pushing it in and unlocking it. And I just think it's a manual focus lens. Why is there a lock on it? We should have 100% control of it 100% of the time. Was this a feature on the classic 35mm version 2 from the 1960s? If it was, and they obviously want to replicate that lens, then that makes sense why they added it. But it has never been a benefit. why would locking a lens be helpful to anyone? Maybe someone can provide something I'm missing here, but yeah, lenses that lock at infinity, I just think are pointless. The next thing that I'm not so keen on is the lens hood. Now I realize this isn't really going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people, but this product right here is just not on the same level as this product. This lens is built so nicely. This lens hood is just annoying. Now, even pinching the little silver things on and clipping the hood on, I mean, I promise I'm not making this dramatic. It's not easy. It's not a fun experience. So pinching the hood and getting it off is easier. Getting it back on, I don't know. And then when it is on, why is it turning and fiddly and kind of, I want it to be still and locked in place, kind of. It just doesn't, it's not as nice as the rest of the lens. So I prefer to shoot without it on. I realize a lot of people might not care about this, but one thing you can do, so yeah, let me just take this off. One thing you can do is put this filter and screw it to the lens hood. And then the filter stays on the lens hood and not the lens. I do think that does work and it is nice, but I don't really shoot with filters on anyway. So the filter will screw into here and then this clips onto the lens, kind of. The next thing to point out would be that the lens doesn't exactly communicate with the M11. So if I'm looking through my photographs in Lightroom and I know I shot at f4, it might say that it's shot at f3.4. The metadata is just incorrect. And if I'm shooting at 1.4, it might say that it was shot at 2.4, which is just a little bit odd. So if you're super diligent and you like keeping track of all your metadata and you want it to be accurate, this won't do that for you. But again, not really a deal breaker for a lot of people. And honestly, I think that's about it for the cons of this lens. So the pros are, to put things simply, that this is a beautifully made, compact 35mm f1.4 that shows some really interesting optical characteristics for less than £400. You can't go wrong with that. And even though I've had this on my camera for 2 or 3 weeks now to make this video with, to get some photographs, to get some experience with it, I'm gonna put this lens straight back on my M11 because it really is that much fun to use and I actually really do want to continue using it. Now, Artizlab did originally send me an affiliate link that I would get a kickback. If you bought this lens, I'd get some money from. I'm just not going to do that. I don't think that's right. I want this review to be as honest and I want this personal recommendation of this lens to be as truthful as possible without there being some kind of bias to me being paid. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not getting paid for any of this. I just genuinely think that this is a good choice. This is a good product. And if you're interested or you're in the market for a 35mm, it has my personal recommendation for sure. So thank you Artizlab for making this. Thank you FunLeader for sending it over. This is really cool and I can't wait to continue using it. So hopefully this video has helped. If you've got any questions about this lens or anything similar in the comments, do pop them down there and I'll do my best to get back to you. Other than that, I will see you guys very soon for the very next video. Peace.